Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I am honored to have a good friend of mine, Erwin Szeto, here. Erwin is an experienced real estate investor, a podcast host. He is the founder of the iWin. Is it a company? It's like iWin does so much. Maybe it'll be better, Erwin, if we had you just tell us a little bit about like all the amazing things that you're doing and the ways that you're supporting the investor community.
I might take up the entire show if I did that. In a nutshell, my wife and I, Cherry, most people know Cherry over me because she's way more popular than I am. Like to give some specifics around it, between the two of us, we own three seven-figure companies. We both co-own a eight-figure real estate portfolio. We co-founded a charity together called the Hamilton Basket Brigade. And since the pandemic happened, donations dried up. So we've become the largest donor by far. We are now at 90% donors or so of our charity. So we've always believed in leading from the front and leading by example as well. Also, some lessons is to me, it's easier to run a business. If you can run a business successfully, that's easier to do than to raise donations for a charity. So that's a decision that we made, was to just focus on our businesses to make them successful in order to donate to our charity. And our charity focuses on supporting the most impoverished children in our local city, Hamilton, Ontario, where we invest. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, and that's why it's so hard. Like you have so many different things going on. I mean, you and Cherry are really a power team. Like there's a lot of people who look up to and admire and respect you for all the amazing things that you do.
We're both just pragmatists. Like, just to give some background what the businesses are. I started in real estate. I got licensed in 2010 because the whole mission was to just help everyday folks have real estate like I did. When I got my license, unlike most folks, I already had about 5 real investment properties under my belt, and so the business model was really easy as a realtor. It was just to help people buy exactly the same stuff I was buying, and the business has grown from there. Um, and Cherry was on my team for a little bit when we were dating. She became a realtor, but then when she was pregnant with our first, the decision was made that the realtor life isn't the easiest for someone who's pregnant, let alone mother to young children. So then she started her accounting firm, which has since exploded. It's incredibly busy. And then along the way, like I know cash flow is easier for you where you invest, but where I invest in Southern Ontario, it's really hard to cash flow. So I was looking to diversify and got into stocks, stock options, and then that's why we've started a stock education company called the Stock Hacker Academy, targeted for real estate investors. So yeah, our journey's always been just trying to support our community as best as possible. The tax side, the accounting business is largely to help people pay just the tax that they're supposed to. And for investors who, like myself, I don't even know how many corporations I own. It's complicated.
It is, it
hence,
is. And it can be
hence it's
overwhelming for
outsourced.
someone who doesn't have, an accounting background and kind of understand how everything
Mhm.
should be working.
Not just that. That stuff is incredibly complicated. The other complication is financing. Like, it's not
Yeah.
easy to get mortgages, and it doesn't get easier. And
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
if
I
you're
mean,
complicated in how corporations and stuff, it gets more complicated. So
yeah.
it helps to have an accountant who knows what we're going through, who are investors as well, who can frame it better for the bank than most can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when I started buying real estate 17 years ago, we were buying with 5% down and we were
Mhm.
getting 40-year amortizations.
Oh, those were
So
the days.
yeah, those were the good old days.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see the evolution in what it's like to be an investor. But I want to kind of remind people that every time there was a change, every time the down payment was increased and the amortization, the longer amortizations were removed, we've always found a way to rise. So I don't want anybody to think that, some of the changes that may or may not be coming in the future from the government, that they would be that they should be deal breakers and should indicate that we should, exit the investing world and go back to, being passive people. One of my biggest frustrations has always been the idea that we have these, fund managers. I saw my parents in 2008, and they had all their RSPs with this fund manager, and they lost 40% of their portfolio, and the fund manager still got paid. I mean, anybody else in that situation, there would have been sort of a conversation and a listen, like, could we have done something differently, or should we have done something differently? And I know that was a tremendous burden for my parents. And when I saw that happen, that was when I really said, I don't want to trust anybody else with my money. I want to make my decisions myself. So much the same way that my husband and I, we are Rich Dad Education or Legacy educated. You are offering people the opportunity through Stock Hacker to learn the basics of investing in stocks for themselves and taking control of their financial future. Can you tell us a little bit more sort of about how you got that, what that whole process was, where you went from investing yourself to sharing that information with others?
So everything I've ever done in business has largely been, hey, this works, and then I share it with my community. I'm just someone, I really enjoy sharing what works with people, because I know how hard it is for a lot of people out there who are not set up financially, who weren't born rich, and who work hard, and like it's terrible right now. Like inflation's eating away at people's wages and savings. So again, I've always invested. I've always have that mindset of always trying to learn and get better at stuff. And then a couple of years ago, a friend of mine who was a pretty successful real estate investor introduced the idea to me of he actually asked me, like, do you know what I do for a living? I go, you do some stock stuff. And of course that drove him nuts. He says, he goes, here, read these two books. One was Money for Nothing, and Your Stocks for Free by Derek Foster. And the other one was Lee Lowell's book, Get Rich with Options. And so I read the books, and then I did nothing. I did nothing for 2 years. And then I ran into that friend again at a coffee shop. And he says, did you read those books? Did you start doing anything? And go, no. I said, I'm too busy. I'm just making too much money in real estate. I'm really busy. I have young kids. I'm too busy. And he said, did you know I taught our paisan, my Adriano, our electrician. So him and I, because we're all real estate investors in the same town, a lot of us use the same tradespeople, including Adriano, who's an electrician, and he's likely the richest electrician any of us will ever meet. He said, I taught paisan to make 6 figures in his first year. I'm like, no way, right? Granted, he Adriano had a mid-level 6-figure portfolio, but still, to generate liquid returns in the 6 figures, with the educational background of an electrician, like I need to learn more. And so I went and bought Adriano lunch. He gave me some basics. He told me it was all real. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this. And I tried it, made some real money, made some good money quick. And I lost a whole bunch of money when during the pandemic crash of spring 2020. And that's when I thought, if I'm gonna learn something, I'm a bit of a keener. So for example, when I started learning real estate, I just jumped all in. Like I invested heavily in my education, no different than your journey, Elizabeth, no different than many of your clients. They invested heavily in their education. So I did the same thing. I actually went out and hired Lee Lowell, the best-selling author of Get Rich with Options, to coach me personally. And that's when I realized I had a lot of holes in my game. And that's when I reached out to Lee, and then that's why I followed with Lee and saying, hey, we need to do a course together. Like we need to teach people how to do this right. And so the course, yes, we do teach a lot of the basics to get mainly real estate investors into the stock market and doing stock options. But also the key thing is that for our students, for the first 12 months, they receive the same trades that Lee does for 12 months. Right? Wow. And before we were recording, like we're I was bashing private lending. It's not all private lending is bad, but like I mentioned to you, when you see what the pros do, when you see what they invest in personally, like mortgage people who cherry pick, and you hear about what those deals look like, you're like, oh yeah, I'd invest in that. And then me personally, I wouldn't invest in anything that's people are like publicly blasting out, right? It's just partly the cheapness in me. I want the cherry pick deal, but in reality, that's not going to happen because I'm not investing the time like those mortgage professionals are, right? Um, they, because of their work and their effort and the businesses they built, they've earned that right to be able to get those great deals. Mm-hmm. But so and great deals aren't that common. But in the stock market and in stock options, Lee, who helps us teach the course and provide us trades, he's watching the market 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, 250 days a year. So he's always looking for us for deals. And because the stock market and stock option market is so big, he can share with us deals, and then we can all get in on that as well. So that's kind of the magic of the course. Is he can find me those deals that are worth cherry picking, and then I can invest just like a professional.
Yeah. So let's back up for 1 second. And I find it interesting that you compared stock options to private lending, because I think a lot of people wouldn't have done that. I think a lot of people would view private lending as more secure than stock options because you're registered on title for something, depending. I mean, there's a difference between, prom notes where it's literally a piece of paper and a handshake, right, and first or second mortgage position. There's a difference there. So if we're going to actually look at private lending versus stock options, can you tell us a little bit about sort of what the average returns for stocks look like, and how we can, because I think a lot of people might think that stocks are risky too. So how do we mitigate risk within our stock portfolio?
Okay, there's a lot there. I'm not the brightest, so you have to remind me some of those pieces of those questions. Okay, let's start off with why I make the analogy is, first off, I like to say, I believe I own a lot of real estate. I believe that's the best investment. I own it, not necessarily, we do a lot of corporations, but we have direct control of our properties. We quote unquote own the property. In reality, the bank owns more of our properties than we do. All right, let's just get that out of the way.
You're on title though.
My corporations are on title, that my wife and I own outright. So how I draw the analogy between private lending and what we do at Stock Hacker Academy is, first off, in private lending, generally people don't expect to make the same private lending as they do in owning real estate, right? The goals are different. The risk is different, right? The term is different. Like a lot of private lending deals I see are like 12 months, for example, or they're usually shorter term, 6 months, 4 months, 6 months, 12 months. Some of these bigger projects can be a bit longer, right? Versus when you own a home, you really should be committed for like 5 years at least. Yeah. Right. Maybe beyond. Like for my own portfolio, we're planning on holding everything almost forever. Right? So first off, the return profile is different. I know that people who do private lending, people who lend privately, their interest is more around cash flow. So that's one of the main focuses of what we do at Stock Hacker Academy. We're focusing on cash flow. And before we were recording, there can be plenty of risk private lending. Yes. You and I know plenty of people who lose money in it. In my opinion, there's a fair amount of diligence that should go in before anyone private lends, right? And there's lots of things that can go wrong on a private lend, right? What if the general contractor goes bankrupt? What if the general contractor gets hit by a bus? What if the investor gets hit by a bus? All these things can really fall apart quickly if everything doesn't work, if everything doesn't go smoothly. What if the market turns, right? I think you and I have been chatting about, we're at a peak and we may be seeing a turn in the market. Is now a good time to private lend? In my opinion, no, right? And also, when we talk about risk, I would like some diversification outside of real estate, right? That's me personally, especially where we are today. I don't know when the people are going to see this recording, but we're in the middle of a stock market correction. Versus in real estate, we're at the newest all-time high for the last 12 years.
Yes. Right? Well, I think ever. I honestly, I don't think we've never been this high.
And we've been saying that for the last
2 years. 5 years.
Maybe longer, almost longer. 2017 was almost negligible. When people were in 2017, the correction in 2017, people felt that pain. But now that's passed, people forgotten about it. Yes. Right. And And then again, I think for me personally, if I was ever to do a private lend, there'd be so much diligence I would have to do.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if it was a renovation, if there's a large significant renovation involved, that means that they go check on the property once a month.
Yeah.
Right. That's me personally. That's a lot of work to me. So if I'm gonna do real estate, I'd rather just own it. If I'm gonna put in that much work, I'd rather just own it and then own all the upside as well. I personally don't. That's not for me to private lend. Right. Everyone's different. But with the stock, what we teach at Stock Hacker Academy, and this is just one of the things we teach at Stock Hacker Academy, is to be able to generate cash flow from your phone in like less than 4 hours a week.
Wow.
Right? And you talked about risk. I'm just following what our lead instructor does, Lee. He's got 30 years experience. He's at his desk 10 hours a day, right? So he can monitor everything. So that manages my risk, right? I have someone of that much experience and expertise watching my investments, basically, right? And then also on the other side, we have Derek Foster, who's the author of the other book that we mentioned, Get Rich, Money for Nothing and Stocks for Free. I wish I poured all my money into his stock picks, but we had him on as a guest for all of our members, our students, back in May 2020. And he told it, and I asked him, like, what are your favorite stocks for this period? Because we're just on the out of a crash. The crash had just happened, right? And that's the best opportunity. And so he gave us his five favorite Canadian stocks for that time, and also 5 US stocks. And then just last week, I checked, just like, how did they do?
Yeah.
The worst performing stock was up 43%.
Oh, is that all?
That's all.
Oh my goodness.
Right, and it's been less than 2 years. And the best one, Suncor. So I think anyone who follows oil, it was up 130% at the time. That also would have paid a 10% dividend.
Wow.
Right. So
I think you really highlighted there the importance, whether it's private lending or stock hacking. I mean, as investors, we want to have a diversified portfolio because there isn't necessarily a strong correlation between real estate and stocks. So it's unlikely that both markets are going to drop dramatically at the same point in time, right?
Right. Especially since you and I are in Ontario and Canada, it's just different.
Yeah.
Right. The fundamentals of real estate in Canada are just different than the stock market.
Absolutely.
It's much more global.
Absolutely. But I think you've really highlighted the importance of finding, mentors and people that you can trust, people who have proven themselves to be experts in their particular field, and then sort of following them and learning from them so that you can do and replicate. That's the interesting thing I love about the stock market. You've talked a bit about that is the fact that in the world of real estate, there's typically like one deal that provides a return and like one person can do it, or maybe 2 people at the most. Whereas in stocks, you can have a classroom full of people and everybody can do the same deal and get the same results, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Like, take the real estate analogy. I got this great wholesale deal and it's like 100, 200 grand under market, but there's only one of them, right? That's why no one would ever talk about and share the address, because it would just create competition. Versus Lee or Derek can share, hey, I'm putting money into this. Yeah. Right. We're just specks of dust in the universe in terms of financial markets.
So do stock hackers or stock investors, do they experience the same scarcity mindset? Do they have the same sort of the fear of missing out principle that I've seen a lot of real estate investors experiencing recently? A lot of people are really, with a market as superheated as this one, there's a lot of people beating themselves up and wondering what they're doing wrong because they're not finding deals and opportunities right now. Is that what's going on? Does that happen in the stock world, or just because there's so much opportunity, it's kind of like maybe like investing in the US where there's so many homes and so many people?
The thing about the stock market is it corrects often. So like the real estate, I've met so many real estate investors who say, I'm going to buy when it crashes. How long have we been waiting for that in Ontario?
Oh, yeah. I mean, really, 2008 was the last sort of real correction that we saw in the market.
Right. Versus in stocks, there's opportunity way more often. It's like I always refer back to like Warren Buffett, who's like the greatest investor in the world.
Mhm.
He might not be the most richest person in the world, but I think in the last 2 years, he increased his net worth from like 70 billion to like 116 billion. And that's his last 2 years, right? So he's pretty good. And so the classic is be greedy when others are fearful,
Mhm.
right? So in the real estate world, I think people are pretty greedy right now. So I would be fearful,
Yeah.
right? At least in the short term. Long term, I'm holding everything. I think fundamentals are just, there's not enough being built, too much demand.
Yeah. There's so
I'm
many
holding
people,
everything.
especially in Ontario. There's so many
Yeah.
people coming in. There's way more demand than there is housing available.
And we may even see the same thing for Alberta too, with oil booming, and
Yeah.
I think politically people are going to want Canada to be more independent with their oil.
Mhm.
There's just so much good things going on in Canada, and especially Ontario. And then again, stock market. We're in the. I'm a capitalist, but I also do charity work. I'm not even sure what the term is for that. But again, I'm always looking for where's the opportunity,
Yeah.
right? The stock market, lots of fear right now. We're in the middle of we're in the middle of a war. Not we. Poor
Mhm.
Ukraine's in the middle of a war.
Mhm.
Who knows where that's going to lead to? So I'm sitting on a bunch of cash, waiting to pick up some great deals, while
Mhm.
people are fearful. And I only have this courage because I can stand on the shoulders of giants like Derek Foster, like Lee Lowell. Like Derek is a 6-time best-selling author, right? Like he's made himself a fair amount of money just with stocks, almost no real estate. Same thing with Lee Lowell. Neither of them are real estate fans, which is
Mhm.
totally cool, right?
Yeah.
But again, it goes down to where's the opportunity. I have real estate that doesn't cash flow great, like a lot of real investors these days.
Mhm.
So again, I'm looking for opportunity outside of that, outside of real estate, to cash flow and be a little bit more liquid, right? Because
Absolutely.
I think uh, now for even real estate investors, like I think everyone should be a little bit liquid in case opportunity does come up to get into.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of the kind of bigger investors I've been talking to who are definitely looking at holding some cash right now. Despite inflation and everything, there's opportunities coming, but in the market right now, it's. I mean, I won't say there's nothing out there, but you have to be pretty creative and pretty committed to find those opportunities for sure.
Yeah, it's harder than ever.
Yes.
It's harder than ever to find like a really great deal,
Hmm. Yeah,
but they
I.
are out there.
So tell me a little bit about how did you connect with Derek and with Lee? And obviously it was very important to you to be able to bring them into the Stock Hacker Academy so that students would have access to their knowledge, their insight, and their kind of information. So how did you connect with them, and what have you seen that they've brought to Stock Hacker to even help you level up from what you were offering initially?
So if anyone who hasn't read the book Win Friends and Influence People, I highly recommend it. For example, Elizabeth, can you think of any sort of annoying requests you get from your social media? Like, hi Elizabeth, can you can I buy you coffee and you teach me everything you know, just so I
Yeah,
can pick your brain,
yeah,
right? Versus my approach to get Lee's attention is, hey Lee, I'm a big fan of your book. Um, uh, I've actually helped. I'm like the reason your book is sold out in Canada. Can we have a phone call? I'm actually in the market for a coach, right?
perfect.
That's the conversation he's interested in having. And then I
Mhm.
hired him, right? Of course, then now I'm a paying customer. I'm paying him a lot of money,
Mhm.
right? Often you like no different than your clients, you're willing to have conversations with them,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And so yeah, again, I hired Lee to be my coach. So yeah, he's willing to talk to me, and then again, I presented him a business opportunity. After
Mhm.
we got to know each other, he understood the charity work we're doing, and the course that I want to deliver. We align in values and that we're trying to help people. And then with Derek Foster, it was, hey Derek, um, I'm kind of the reason that you're selling all these books, because he noticed when
Yeah.
I started talking about his book on my podcast and our course. Uh, um, it was never a top seller for him, but then
Mhm.
he just started selling tons of copies of Money for Nothing. So like, Derek, I'm probably partly the reason why you're selling so many books. Would you mind getting on a call with me, right? And he did, right? Because I'm a I referred him a lot of business.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So that's always the approach I like to take, is to, provide value
Mhm.
before I ever ask for anything. And then once we got talking to Derek, and like, you know, part of um, who Cherry and I am, one of our core values is to like, we could have saved a lot of money and tried. Cherry and I could have tried to teach people how to do stocks and stock options,
Mhm.
uh, but that's not right for our core values, because we believe in experts. There's people who know this stuff better than us.
Gotcha.
So who would we want to learn from? And that's who we brought in for the course, right? Again, folks with way more experience than us. Did I
Wow.
even answer a question there?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And your audience
absolutely.
would understand. It's no different than, like, how would you invest if you were in Elizabeth's head at least once a week, right? Like,
So,
you asked about mitigating risk. How much risk do you think your newbie would mitigate if they were in your head once a week at least?
oh, a considerable amount of risk because I took a lot of risks and I made a lot of mistakes and I learned a lot of lessons,
Yeah.
and I make it my mission. I'm willing to make mistakes on my journey. I just
Hmm.
don't want to make the same one twice because that means I didn't learn the lesson the first
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
So I spend a lot of time looking at my mistakes and figuring out what I could and should have done differently so that
Hmm.
that didn't happen. I'll make other mistakes,
Hmm.
but I only want to make a mistake once.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
my one of my core values.
Right. And the mistakes I've made is I hold too many high flying technology stocks that don't make money, as in, like, those companies aren't profitable,
Okay.
which has partly led me back to doing what we taught in the course. So I'm so proud of how we structured the course, because um, like, I don't want to see anyone lose money.
Gotcha.
So if people just followed what we taught in the course, and not to do some of the crazy stuff I did, buying like Roblox, and like buying shares in like Robinhood and like Palantir and like crazy stuff like that, like, they'd be in the same position I am, holding stock that's dropped a lot in value. But if they stuck with what we taught in the course, like, literally, I was using examples on how to invest in Suncor, for example. The same stock I mentioned, since May 2020 is up 130%. It's up even more now since oil is flying. So again, I was just so happy and so reassured when we reviewed what the content, and like went back and audited what we taught, and
Mhm.
how those stocks and trades performed. So I'm just really proud of what we've done.
That's a lot to be proud of because it's like going back, and you not only want to look at your mistakes, but you want to look at your wins too and say, what did we do here that created this win? And you want to replicate that as well. I mean, I think our goal as investors should always be to refine our systems and processes to produce an increasingly high quality result.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's really what you're talking about doing. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of the way the Stock Hacker Academy is set up? Like, what would someone's experience be? What would their learning be? How does that all work?
So it's a bit of a moving target because we're always trying to improve it. But the way it is today is it's a 12-month program. It's always been a 12-month program, uh, and it starts off with a boot camp. It's 3 days. We're likely going to trim down to 2 days live. We're gonna just pre-record the first day so that people can get that as soon as they purchase the course. We find that when people purchase the course, they want to start right away.
Yeah,
So
they're
we're actually trying
excited.
to service them
Yeah.
in that way. So we'll pre-record one of the first day of the program, and then we deliver 2 days live
Mhm.
with Derek and with Lee, and then there's a lot that goes on. And then for 8 weeks, once a week, they have a webinar with taught by Lee live to go through the theory and to break down concepts in more detail. We have also, I think, 6 hand holding sessions, what we call them. So also webinar based, where we walk people through the technology. Um, because we find some people, like the younger people, like the 30 somethings who are really comfortable with smartphones, they just fly with the technology. There's no problem with
Yeah.
them. But the 40, 50, 60 people who are not this tech savvy,
Yeah.
that's why we added to the program. So we have about 6 bonus sessions where we just go through the application and how to use it to make sure we don't leave anyone behind. We have a private chat group for a year as well, and we host monthly meetups. So again, we try to make this as comprehensive as possible so that
Mhm.
no one gets left behind. And then about a couple times a year, we have Derek on to give us updates on how his buy and hold investing is going.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So not only do you provide the actual education, but you also provide the networking and the ongoing support to help people who
Mhm.
are struggling.
Yeah, because no different than real estate investors listen to this. They know it's a lonely journey,
It can be,
right?
yeah, you're right. It
Yeah.
absolutely can be. And I find a lot of times with real estate investors, sometimes we don't know who to trust. You don't
Hmm.
know, we don't know who we can turn to provide reliable and consistent information, because as much as there are some people out there doing some great things in real estate, there's also some stuff going on that, leaves people feeling a little less than happy or
Hmm.
cared for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I totally get that. It's very common feedback for us to get that they thought that our thing with our program was a scam or a Ponzi scheme. And then I always have to remind people, we never touch your money. Yes, you pay for the course,
Yeah.
but you never invest with us. We're trying to teach you how to invest your own money so you control it,
Yeah.
right?
Which
So,
I think is the ideal. I think a lot of us as real estate investors, most of us have a very entrepreneurial mindset. And, most of us are no longer happy leaving, our RRSPs and, funds that are managed by other people, and, investment opportunities that are chosen by other people. I think a lot of us very much believe in our ability to control our destiny, and we want to, be able to say, this is what I want my future to look like, and here's what I'm
mhm,
willing to do to make it happen.
absolutely. And then just to add to that, I hear this often from parents. They know their kids will never do real estate. They're just not that. That's not the personality type. But
Hmm.
they will do stock stuff on their phone because they're comfortable doing that. So
Yeah.
I've had lots of parents take the course saying, I need to learn this so I can teach it to my kid because they won't do real estate. And also just if you're gonna like Southwestern Ontario, it's just so expensive.
Yeah.
Not everyone has 100 or 200 grand to get into their first investment property, right?
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are doing stock hacking and using it to help save a down payment too, to be able to
Hmm.
get into a property, whether it's an
Hmm.
owner occupied or a vacation rental property, or something along those lines. So a
Hmm.
lot of people are using it as a way to supplement current income and to be able to save for, the opportunity to invest in real estate and kind of park that money so that it grows and benefits from market growth over time.
Hmm. Absolutely. You know, I consider stock hacking the future of side hustles, at least for a lot of our community, because a lot of them will be priced out of the real estate market. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure your clients are worried for their kids how they're ever going to afford anything. It's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, they are. And the other thing that a lot of people are doing is they're having to decide, do I want to own this real estate indefinitely, and sort of live, from whatever income it produces, or do I want to plan in the future for my retirement? I'm going to sell that. So people, I don't think, are looking at holding real estate the same way that they were. It used to be like, I'm going to buy an apartment building, I'm going to put it in a corporation, and I'm going to pass it on to my children, and it's going to go to my children's children. And a lot of
Hmm.
people are going now, like, I have to fund my retirement, so I'm going to sell this asset because that's where my retirement money is.
Hmm. Hmm. And then once they sell it, where are they going to invest it? What are they going to invest in?
Well, that's it. That's the challenge, right? But I mean, it's not, as much as everything is going up right now with inflation. Imagine what it's going to cost for us. Like if it's, I have a friend whose dad is in a home right now, and his medical needs have changed, and they just got notification they're paying 5,000 right now, and it's going to go up by another 2,000 next month. I mean, nobody's income has increased in that same way. So they
Oh
now have
man.
to make a decision about, do they go down a different route? Do they try and find something, a different option for housing for their dad? Like that's a really tough decision to make. And think about, ourselves in 20 or 30 years when we're in that situation, how are we going to deal with that? I mean, I believe historically, to some degree, some people really believe that, our kids, I know certainly my grandfather believed that we would always care for him. And we did everything we could, but realistically, you can't always, with complex medical needs, you can't always keep someone at home and look after them that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think we have to be prepared for a lot of different things, and we have to be looking much farther ahead than just, what's the market doing today or what's the market doing this year, but how are we going to fund our lifestyle in 30 years? And we're living longer slowly.
Yep. Yep. Already planned for it.
Good for you.
The
Can you
nanny
tell
for my
us?
kids will become my nanny.
Can you tell us a bit about your plan? Like where does stock hacking fit into your overall investment sort of picture?
Because our real estate's gone up so much, it makes up a massive majority of our wealth.
Mm-hmm.
The stock hacking is more a side hustle, honestly. And again, it's a wonderful journey for learning. When before I got into stocks, I felt I was very focused on real estate, and so I kind of lost the global picture. So this is one of the wonderful things about stocks is you pay much more attention to what's going on in the world. So again, it's a small percentage of our net worth.
Mm-hmm.
I plan on growing it, hopefully through its own natural growth, and as we fund it, and also because it's so liquid, I can put money in, I can take money out. Like say I see a real estate opportunity, because like I mentioned, we want to send some cash, so I can do some stock hacking with that money, and should I see an opportunity, I can take the money back out and do a real estate opportunity. So that's kind of the plans for it right now. And then of course, like we dabble in some cryptos as well. But again, that's cryptos are not a big portion of our net worth, but hope I'm planning on growing that as well.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities out there. People might even find themselves a little bit overwhelmed and kind of shiny penny. What advice would you provide to someone who is trying to decide between, do they want to learn stocks or do they want to get into crypto?
My escape answer is you need to learn it all.
Okay, but let's say they wanted to chart a journey and they had to pick something to focus on first, because we know, I mean, you've seen lots of new investors who get the kind of shiny penny syndrome, and they just go from one thing to the next, and they don't finish learning or acquiring those skills with their initial strategy, whatever it is, before they move on to the next one. So they end up doing a whole bunch of things, about 50%, and then none of it yields the results that they're looking for.
Right. I think it has to start back to their goals. For example, if they're willing to be full-time at something, because most of my clientele is not willing to be full-time, right? So it's again, I'm going to steal from Warren Buffett. I forget the exact numbers. I think the number was if you're willing to spend 6 to 8 hours per week researching, then go ahead. And you enjoy doing it, go ahead and do it. I think that number is actually kind of small. And that's in that context, he was talking about 6 to 8 hours researching stocks.
Okay.
Right? He said, if you're not willing to put in that time, you are an amateur. So go back to your day job.
Oh.
Right. So I would apply that to almost everything in terms of investing world. If you're not willing to invest at least 6 to 8 hours investing in real estate, stocks, crypto, you are an amateur. Right. So just do something simple like a buy and hold investment, or in the stock world or cryptos, you can just set up an automated investment plan, like say for example $100 a month to buy whatever it is, your favorite stock, your favorite crypto. I don't know how you do that with real estate. And then in turn for real estate is buy something pretty simple.
Yeah.
Right. And just hold it.
Then usually that involves buying close to you. Most people,
it doesn't have to be. It can even be pre-construction condo, for example.
Feel it's more stable and secure to buy something close to them in a market they're familiar with.
Nothing wrong with that. And lots of people in Ontario just buy pre-construction condos downtown. I don't disagree with any investment. I think there's good, better, best, and there's bad investments as well. But you kind of got to do something.
Yeah. I think sometimes doing nothing is actually the worst move that people can make.
You definitely won't learn anything by doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, you can lose money. So, make good decisions.
Yeah. And make sure you hire the right people and do your own due diligence and research. When we were talking before the call, you sort of made a comment about if someone in Stock Hacker did literally nothing except follow the recommendations from the mentors.
If they did literally nothing. So
None of their own research, none of their own 6 to 8 hours a week. They literally
which
just
is,
took the information that's put out and
yeah.
plugged it in and did that. What did you say the return was?
So we went back and audited Lee's trades last year. The one that was provided to students, that would have returned, if people just followed his trades verbatim, they would have returned just over 12%. And again, that's liquid, doesn't take much effort. To me, and like I was saying, the comparison to private lending,
Mm-hmm.
that's a very common number that people want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right?
most people are looking for 12%, but it's not, their money is typically locked in. There's no liquidity to it at all.
Right. There's liquidity to this. You can take, it's under your control. You don't have to talk to anyone to take your money out.
Yeah.
And that was just that was the basic newsletter, and then we have another one for, let's put more intermediate strategy, and that one returned over 15%.
Wow.
Right. So I do both of those. So I wish I just did those things. It would have saved me a lot of heartache from owning Tesla, for example, which is down, I don't even know, down like 20% from when I bought it. Right.
Wow.
So I don't regret it. Like I'm fine to hold these things for 5 years, but the short term is I'm losing money on these positions. But again, 5 years from now, I'll probably be laughing. So it's a different mindset than real estate. But yeah, and then round out then like I mentioned, if people just follow Derek Foster's stock picks that he recommended back in 2020. So just to give some context, Derek Foster is more like a value style investor. So he looks for stuff that's really beaten up. That's like no different than real estate investors. Like they look for the house on the street that, tall grass, boarded up windows.
Yeah. No
right?
snow removal. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's value investing in real estate. So Derek looks for the exact same thing in stocks. He looks for something that's been beaten down for no good reason. And the pandemic caused a lot of stocks to drop for no real good reason. Like my favorite example is Amazon went down to $1,600. Right? If anyone just took a step back and thought for 30 minutes during the pandemic and thought, who's going to do really well in the pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. When people can't get into stores and, when people are required to stay in their homes, who's going to do really well? Yeah.
Right. So Amazon even crashed down to $1,600 a share. And now today, I think it's like $2,900. Right.
Wow.
But anyways, that's value investing is my point. But again, Derek gave his picks. And again, the lowest one was 40. Most of them were ranged between 40 and 60%, and almost all of them paid dividends. Most of them paid dividends as well. So then you'd be collecting, 6 to 8 to 10% dividends. So, you want income, you want cash flow, like that's a pretty good one.
Absolutely. So would most people sort of expect, could they expect somewhere around 10 to 15% in their first year? Would it increase year over year as you became more knowledgeable, or would it be more likely that you would consistently get that return year over year?
It's still market dependent. But yeah, like just to give an example as well, like right now, like I mentioned, like we've been in a bit of a correction right now for the last 3 beyond months. Like Lee has been advising us to basically do nothing, right? We took one loss, but otherwise, but we've protected our capital. So like the period that we're in right now for the last 3 months, about 3 to 6 months, what you want to do now is preserve capital, as in not lose money.
Okay.
Right. So the students who are following Lee exactly are doing very well.
Really?
Right. Versus the market's fallen. I think even the market's fallen about 15% already.
Wow.
Versus our students should stay largely out away from that trouble if they follow Lee exactly.
So would students be able to walk away after a year with Stock Hacker? Do you think that they would be able to invest independently of Lee in the future? Or would it really be beneficial for them to continue to follow Lee and what he's doing?
That's how we set up the course, was that people should be able to do this on their own.
Perfect.
The nice thing though is, I've been with Lee for 3 years and I'm still with Lee. Right.
Because you actually have 2 levels in the Stock Hacker, right? You have the beginner and then you have the more advanced level course.
We have additional courses as well for people who want to be a bit more active. For myself, I've got 3 businesses, 2 young kids. I'm trying to
Mhm.
pacify myself and use less brain power
Right.
on this business, on these investments. So I like to just follow Lee and Derek because it's a pace that I like, not that often.
So reasonably and realistically, how much time should people anticipate investing in order to become, proficient investors? Like when they're starting out and they take the course initially, are they spending, 20 hours or 30 hours a week? How much time do they need to find to get up to speed? And then you mentioned 4 hours. I would assume there's a period, it takes a while to get down to 4 hours. You're probably doing a lot more work before that.
It's to choose your own adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, if my goal was just to be able to follow Lee, I would not have to invest much time at all, right? But for the person who wants to be like a Warren Buffett,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be closer to a full-time job. So I don't mean to duck the question. It really is. We even frame it in the course at all times. I'm sure it's no different for like your clientele. Like, do you want to be a flipper? You're going to be active.
Yes.
Do you want to buy a pre-construction condo in Toronto? It's
You're
going to
gonna
be
be
very
fast.
different,
Yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
again, we present options for everyone, and also we let them know, like, if you want this lane, this is what your life's going to be like.
Yeah,
You want to be a day trader? No different than a flipper. You're pretty close to full time,
gotcha.
right? But our objective is that anyone exiting the course should be able to keep it down to 4 hours a week if they want to keep it the way that we've taught it, right? And again, based on past history, which does not predict the future, it's done very well.
Yeah.
Right? If you just stay the course and follow what's taught, you should be fine. And then, I'll pose the question back to you, Elizabeth. How are your clients good? Are your coaching clients good a year after coaching? Right? If they want to continue advancing, one does not give coaching.
No.
Right?
No, I mean, I've invested well over six figures in my coaching and development during the time that I've been a real estate investor. Until I became an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, I didn't have a really good sense of appreciation for personal development. It was when I left my job working for other companies that I suddenly went, how do I find the next level? Now I'm responsible for figuring out not only how do I get to the next level, but what does that level look like? So I mean, I have coaches right now. I have hired two new coaches within the last year who are helping me with various aspects of my life where I want to level up. I don't anticipate a time where I ever will not have a coach, because I don't anticipate a time where I ever want to just keep doing what I've always done. I always want to be better.
Right. And so my point is, there's no one shoe that fits all.
Yeah.
It's it's people need to cater to their goals. You're not going to make money like Elizabeth Kelly if you don't put in the time, money, and effort, right?
Yeah.
But if you're good to be, hold three condos in Toronto, 1 year of coaching may be sufficient.
Yeah, but I find what I found with a lot of my clients too is that we'll spend some time together, and for whatever reason, the coaching support, they say, okay, I want to work on this on my own, and a number of them will come back again and say, you know what, I hadn't realized how much I benefited from the mindset piece, or how much I benefited from the accountability piece. And those are things that it can be struggling. Like, how do you hold yourself accountable, and how do you continue to keep yourself in the right headspace? And I could see that being a tremendous value with your academy, because when you go through a month where you get a little bit beaten up and a little bit bruised, and maybe your returns aren't what you were hoping for, how do you continue to have the right mindset to be able to keep moving forward, versus just pulling everything out of your stocks and moving it to something else because the grass looks greener over there?
Absolutely. I'm sure you've seen it with your clients. Something bad happens to the property. The tenant could do something, or
Yeah.
what? It's usually the tenant. Usually
Yeah.
a property problem, like maybe the basement leaks, or maybe the tenant did something, and then your client's like, I want to sell, right? They make a short-term emotional decision without looking at the whole picture.
Yes.
Right. Coaching is incredibly valuable at those points. No different when the market's crashing, right? I'm waiting. I have cash waiting to get back in to add to the market. So I love the fact that I don't have to try to figure this out on my own. I have a coach,
Yeah.
right? And Lilo and Derek, which we provide to our students, and Yeah, that's how I like to do it. It's worked out. Again, the history has proven that's worked out really well for them.
Mhm.
So I just like you said, people have left and they did some stuff
Yeah.
and they come back, and no different with our stuff as well. We have people that did some crazy stuff. You realize that that risk was not worth it. They lose sleep over at night, and so they
Yes.
come back to the same principles that we originally taught.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much, Erwin, for taking the time today to share your insights and your experience. And I just, it's been so interesting to be able to connect with you, over the months as you've kind of gone through this journey. But your underlying values and your integrity and your desire to educate and support investors in whatever path they choose. I appreciate that very much, and I think we need more people like you in our community. So thank you for being that person.
Oh, happy to share. And I like to say the same for you, Elizabeth. You
Thanks.
and I know a lot of folks out there who are uh, who have questionable business practices and costing their investors a lot of money. So there's no we can always use more good people in the real estate community.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Erwin. It's been great connecting with you. And I'd like to have you back again in the future, and let's do a recap and see how they did. We talked about the 2020 results. I'll be interested to see the 2021 predictions and what kind of happened there.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Erwin. Take care.